Hello and welcome to another development log of Project Third Eye. In today's development log, we are going to look at a few bug fixes and vehicle mechanics that I'm planning on implementing, but it's going to take a little bit more time. All right, without further ado, let's jump right into it. So the first thing that I want to show you is a few fixes on the tool gun. First of all, I removed the 2 additional switches, so it effectively is now a lot smaller, which is nice and a lot more handy. Then I did some improvements on the joint gun. So let's connect the joint gun really quick to a lot of objects. Yeah, something like this, doesn't really matter. A lot of connections between these cubes. Now I'm setting it to delete. And now if I'm going to delete, let's say this connection right here, and once I release the trigger, it should delete only this connection up there. Boom, and it only deleted this connection. And it works with this connection as well, and this one, and this one, and this one, and this one, and this one. So basically there was a bug when it sometimes didn't really found the connections in the objects, and then it just didn't work. And now it also works when you have multiple, here we go, multiple connections. Yeah, it just deletes all of the connections between these 2 objects. Oops. Boom, there you go. Okay, that's a few improvements on the gun. I've also fixed the bug where it, for no reason, spawns balloons. So that's fixed as well. Yeah, that's it with the tool gun, basically. And then we have a minor bug fix on the Revolver. Let me get a bullet really quick. So a lot of people have problems inserting the bullets. I'm not sure if they know that they had to open the drum, because once you open the drum, the distance is a lot better to handle. However, a lot of people had trouble inserting the bullets because the rings of their... Oops. Hello? Where are my hands? Get my hands disconnected for no reason. Here we go. Okay, yeah, they had trouble inserting the bullet because the rings of their Oculus controllers were touching, and that's why I made the trigger zone of the bullets a little bit larger, and now it's a bit easier. I think that's fine for now. Okay, quick fix on the Revolver. Then there's another fix for the gun, and this is the magazine insertion. So if you have a magazine and you want to insert it, there was a problem where people said the rings of their Oculus controllers were touching, so they could not fully get the magazine into the gun. And that's why I decided to add a small force on the magazine. So once you release it, no matter the position of the magazine, it will always go into the gun. But of course, if you release the magazine, it will just fall out, just like this. So not a problem at all. And if you want to have the full physical version, you can go into mechanics and change it to physical. And now, as you can see, there's no pulling force, and I have to do all the work manually. Okay, so that makes it a little bit simpler on the guns. Also, there was something else that I changed, but I forgot. Oh yes, it's the way you can get magazines. So in previous versions, you always had to press the secondary button on the controller to release the magazine. But now you can also just grab the magazine, because I realized that the grabbing spots on the guns are most of the time so distinct that yeah, there's no ambiguity really. So you could just pull it out, and it's just not possible to accidentally grab the recharging handle and then you go to the magazine and release it. It just doesn't happen. So that's why I decided to add this feature, because most games have it, and now Project Third Eye has it too. Okay, that's the joint gun. That's the guns, and let's... okay. Let's go to the next feature, or the next features, which is the physical motors and the gear constraint that I made. Okay, in Unity, there is a constraint that is called rotation constraint, or you can effectively create a rotation constraint. And we can even do this with joint gun when we go into the mode called fix rotation. And this means that nothing of these two objects is fixed except for the rotation, as you can see. So it doesn't really matter where I go, I can control the rotation of the gun, basically. Okay, so the rotation is fixed. That's a rotation constraint. And what I did here is, it's a rotation constraint, but it has a gear ratio. So it's not only coupled once. So when this rotates once, this rotates twice. And when this rotates once, this rotates twice. So we have effectively a 1:4 gear ratio from here to here. And this is just linearly coupled to the wheel up there. And as you can see, when I move it very fast, it creates a lot of momentum on this side. Oh, Jesus. Yeah, a lot of momentum. And this is a proper constraint, so it preserves all the torque and momentum in the system. So when I try to stop it, it has a lot of inertia because it has this object and this object and this object coupled in this kinematic chain. So it goes both ways, basically. That's what I want to say. Yeah, that's it for the simple gear constraint. And then I made another one. So this one is the same, but the connection from this one to this one is different. So it's only coupled when this one is faster than this one. So I can speed it up, and then I can just stop, and it's basically not coupled to this wheel anymore. So I could accelerate it, slow it back down, accelerate it one more time. Okay, so it's basically a soft couple where it only goes in one direction, basically. All right, that's it for the gear constraint that I made. And now let me show you a prototype for a physical motor. Okay, so this is an axle dummy or a wheel dummy for a vehicle. And this is the motor shaft of a motor. So this is a motor prototype, a physical motor. This up here is just an animation to visualize the rotation of the motor shaft. And this right here is a throttle. I will show this in a second. So now I can rotate this one and I can start up the motor once it reaches a certain RPM. Here we go. Now it's start up and I can grab this one and it basically stops. So the motor stalls when I stop this one. Or I could grab this one and the motor stalls and just turns off. Okay, then on my left trigger, I have the clutch for this connection. So now the motor can run individually, but once I release the clutch, this one starts to rotate as well. And when I pull the clutch, it's not coupled anymore. Yeah, that's how it works, basically. Very simple. Okay, and here we have the throttle for the motor. And yeah, I could just release the clutch. And then it starts to spin very fast because this is coupled with a gear constraint. So this is 2x1 or 1x2, I don't know the order. But yeah, that's how it works. So we basically have a full physics simulation of a motor that is then physically connected to another object with a gear constraint. Okay, I think that's it for this environment. I can show you the implementation in a vehicle in a second if we go to the racing track. So I go to Sandbox, Racetrack. This is going to take a second. And here we go. We are on the racetrack. And in this racetrack, I implemented this motor mechanic on this vehicle. And yeah, here it is. The same piston animation as the other one. Yeah, physical suspension, physical wheels, a helping collider with 0 friction, so it's easier to drive against objects. Yeah, and then we have the motor shaft right here. And yeah, right now the car is in neutral. That's why I can, oh Jesus, it has a lot of power. That's why I can just stop and start the motor by hand, basically. Okay, let's enter the vehicle. And with the right and left secondary button, I can even change the gear ratio. Okay, right now I'm in neutral. I'm going to press the clutch and we start the motor. Okay, that's the vehicle so far. Let's go. So first of all, I have to pull the clutch and then go into the first gear. And now if I release the clutch, yeah, the motor stalls immediately because I was not hitting the gas. Okay, first gear, a little bit of throttle. And here we go. This is how the vehicle drives, basically. And I can go into the next gear. And if I now go into the first gear and release the clutch, you can hear that the motor RPM has to catch up with the wheel RPM. And it even slows down the vehicle if you do that. So you have a pretty realistic behavior of the motor. Yeah, so you have basically a motor brake. Okay, that's how it works, basically. Can I leave this vehicle? Perfect. Let's go back to the spawn. So that's the prototype vehicle. And here we have the go-kart that I've set up with this vehicle physical, vehicle mechanics. And here we have the motor shaft. I hope you can see this. So yeah, there it turns. And here I added the pull starter. So if I pull, the motor shaft starts spinning. Okay, let me start up the motor really quick. Perfect. And on this vehicle, you can see the motor shaft is running, but on the left trigger, no clutch. There is no clutch. And that's why, and the reason is that I've added a variomatic gear on this vehicle. So basically, the clutch input is depending on the RPM of the vehicle. So the faster the motor goes, the higher the RPM, the better the connection between the wheels and the motor, basically. So it's the same as on a motor scooter or other vehicles. So you only have one gear, basically, that is dynamically setting the clutch by the motor RPM. Okay, that's it, basically. And the driving characteristics of this go-kart, let me show this really quick, are a lot better than on the other physics. Just a lot less drifty and yeah, overall more consistent. Alright, that's it for the go-kart. And now let me show you the dirt bike. I know it's the feature I've been spending the most time on, and yeah, here we go. First of all, I've added leaning, but this time it's depending on the head position. So if I move to the right, it leans to the right. If I move to the left, it leans to the left. Yeah, then we have the physical steering, the physical suspension with this arm right here that is rotating around a certain point. We have this damper piston and of course the physical wheels. That's the setup for the vehicle. And the player has a full fix on this vehicle, so it's coupled on all axes. And I've also implemented the gears on the dirt bike here. So this is the clutch and no throttle on the trigger anymore. Now it's the wrist turn, because that's what a lot of people wanted. They wanted the wrist turn throttle. Okay, let's go to the first gear. and see how it goes. Okay, let me first show you what it looks like if I try to steer only with the steering. As you can see, it works, but on high velocities it gets increasingly harder to steer properly, and that's why you have to lean into the directions, because it adds some torque that enhances the steering. So it's a lot easier to go around the curves if you lean into the direction. Yeah, and we have some collision issues sometimes. So small meshes like these can sometimes falsely detect collisions, and then the vehicle jumps up. And wheeling is also a thing now. At least I hope I can do a wheelie. Oh. Here we go. It's hard to keep the wheelie alive because it doesn't have enough torque yet, but I think that's just a matter of settings. But yeah, I think it's definitely the best iteration of the dirt bike so far. Yeah, and of course I haven't fixed that bug yet. Yeah, but that's it for this development vlog. Mostly vehicle stuff. And if you're interested in the project, just follow Project Third Eye on YouTube.